In this video, we're going to divide the elements into two basic groups by drawing a jagged line through the P block. All of the elements that God created are either metals or they aren't. And so we're going to call the two groups the metals and the non-metals. When dividing the elements like this, hydrogen belongs on helium's side of the table. All of the non-metals are in the P block with the exception of hydrogen, which is in the S block. But hydrogen is always considered a nonmetal and never a metal. The first nonmetal in the table after hydrogen is number 5, boron. However, the element right underneath of boron is aluminum, which we all know is a metal. The element right next to aluminum, number 14, is silicon, and silicon is not a metal. So we start drawing the line at boron and we skirt around aluminum. Now it turns out that the element underneath of silicon is also a metal, but the element right beside it is not. And what happens is you end up drawing a jagged line like this all the way down until you get to astatine, which is the other border of the line. Let's look at this line for a minute. We notice that we started in the P block, and in the first row of the P block there are no metals. In the second row there's one metal. In the third row there are two metals. In the fourth row there are 3 metals. In the fifth row there are 4 metals. Or you could think of it as how the nonmetals are diminishing. In the first row of the P block there are 5, actually 6 nonmetals. In the second row there are 5. In the third row there are 4. Then there are 3. And finally there are only 2. So what would we expect in row 7? We would expect that once these elements are discovered, that the element in row 7, right under radon, would be a nonmetal. Now you might ask yourself, what is a metal? Typically, a metal is a solid material that is hard, shiny, malleable, ductile, fusible, as well as having good electrical and thermal conductivity. We know that it has good electrical conductivity because motherboards are made of a metal that has been soldered on, and electrical wires are made of metal like copper or aluminum. Now these 3 words that I've written here, malleable, ductile, and fusible, may be new words for you, but that would be very important for you to learn the meanings of these words. And so I would like you to look these words up and come up with a definition for them. In the meantime, I will tell you that malleable has to do with a substance being able to be hammered into a different shape without breaking. Ductile has to do with a substance being able to be pulled very thinly to make a wire, while fusible has to do with its ability of being melted very easily. Again, these are the kinds of words that are going to be on the SAT, and so it's important for you to know the meanings of these words and start using these words now so that they're not so strange when it comes time to take that test. So what's the takeaway from this video? It is that all of the elements can be divided into 2 groups, metals and nonmetals, by drawing a jagged line through the P block, starting with the element boron and continuing down in a stepwise fashion until you arrive at the element astatine in row 6. When separating the elements into metals and nonmetals, this is a time that hydrogen belongs on helium's part of the chart, and because hydrogen is always considered a nonmetal. Now, it turns out that all metals were not created equal. The metals in the S block are considered good metals or strong metals. The metals that are in the P block are considered poor metals, while the metals in the D block are simply called the transition metals. Although this name might sound like they're just transitioning between being good metals and being poor metals, many of the metals that we're quite familiar with appear in the transition metal group, in the D block, such as iron and gold and silver. These metals are very reactive and are used in thousands of industrial applications. So once again, the metals in S block are the good metals. The metals in P block are poor. Okay, there you've got a mnemonic, P for poor, are poor metals. And the metals that are in the D block are called the transition metals.